For many of us, the gardening year isn't complete without a trip to the garden center for bags of bark mulch. We heave them into the car, then spend a weekend spreading them neatly around our plants. It feels like the right thing to do. We are told it suppresses weeds, retains moisture, and gives our borders a tidy, professional finish. And for a short while, it does look rather smart. But I have come to believe that this common practice, this ritual of covering our soil in wood chippings, is one of the biggest misunderstandings in modern gardening. It's a habit we've picked up that I feel does more harm than good. The problem with bark mulch is that it creates a barrier. While it may stop some weeds from peeking through, it also stops the good things from getting in. Rain, for instance, often struggles to penetrate a thick, dry layer of bark, instead running off the surface and leaving the soil beneath bone dry. This is especially true after a long, hot spell. You might think you are helping your plants conserve water, but you could inadvertently be creating a tiny desert right at their roots. It's a cover, yes, but it is not a blanket. It is more like a plastic sheet that keeps the life of the garden at bay, rather than inviting it in. Furthermore, this seemingly neat and tidy layer can actually starve your soil of a crucial element, nitrogen. The microorganisms in the soil, the very engines of a healthy garden, need nitrogen to break down the tough, carbon-rich wood chips. To get it, they pull nitrogen from the top layer of your soil, taking it away from the plants that need it most. This can lead to yellowing leaves and lackluster growth, leaving you wondering why your well-tended plants are struggling. You are essentially feeding the mulch instead of feeding your soil, which is the complete opposite of what we, as gardeners, should aim to do. So, while we are busy making our gardens look neat, we are unknowingly creating a more challenging environment for our plants. We are building a system that requires more watering, more feeding, and more intervention from us. It is a cycle of dependency, where the soil becomes poorer and our workload becomes greater. I want to suggest a different path, a path that is not only easier and cheaper, but one that works in harmony with nature to build a truly resilient and vibrant garden from the ground up. It's time we stopped merely covering our soil and started to truly feed it. I must confess, I was once a devoted user of bark mulch myself. Here at Longmeadow, there were areas I dutifully covered every year. It was what one did, but I began to notice things that troubled me. In the beds covered with bark, the soil beneath was often disappointing. When I would dig a hole to add a new plant, the earth was compacted, pale, and strangely lifeless. It lacked that rich, dark, crumbly texture that every gardener loves to see. There were noticeably fewer worms, those wonderful indicators of a healthy living soil. The ground felt hard and unresponsive, almost sterile. My plants in these areas seemed to be working harder just to survive. They were more susceptible to dry spells, wilting sooner than their counterparts in other parts of the garden. Their growth was steady but never truly vigorous. It felt as though they were being held back, their roots struggling to find the sustenance they needed in that depleted soil. I was having to water them more frequently and add more feed to compensate for what the soil was clearly lacking. It became a constant battle, a job that was never quite finished, and the results were never quite as joyful as I had hoped. The turning point for me was a simple observation. I noticed the stark difference between my compost heaps and the mulched beds. The compost heap, a chaotic jumble of kitchen scraps, grass clippings, and garden waste, was teeming with life. It was dark, moist, and wriggling with worms. It smelled sweet and earthy. It was everything I wanted my soil to be. Yet just a few feet away, the soil under the bark mulch was the complete opposite. It was a moment of clarity. Why was I putting a sterile, carbon-heavy material on my soil when I had this perfect, life-giving material right here in my own garden? That realization prompted a change. I decided to experiment. I scraped away the bark mulch from one of the borders and resolved to treat it differently. I would no longer cover it with something processed and packaged, but with a mix of materials from the garden itself. I would try to mimic the natural processes I saw happening all around me. It was the beginning of a journey away from the tidy but inert garden and towards a more dynamic, living, and ultimately much healthier system. It was a simple shift in thinking, but it would transform my entire approach to gardening. If you ever want to understand how to create perfect soil, you need only take a walk in a mature woodland. Look down at the ground. You will not find a uniform layer of bark chips. Instead, you will find a rich tapestry of organic matter in various stages of decay. There are fallen leaves from last autumn, now soft and breaking down. there are small twigs, remnants of last year's growth. You will find a soft, spongy layer of what we gardeners call leaf mold, and beneath that, the richest, darkest, most wonderful soil imaginable. This is nature's mulch, and it is a masterpiece of efficiency and sustainability. The forest floor is a living system, a constant cycle of give and take. As plants and trees shed their leaves, twigs, and fruit, they are returning nutrients to the soil from which they grew. Nothing is wasted. This layer of decomposing material, known as duff, is a feast for an entire ecosystem of microorganisms, fungi, insects, and earthworms. They work tirelessly, breaking down this organic matter and incorporating it into the soil. This process not only feeds the plants but also creates a perfect soil structure, full of air pockets that hold both moisture and oxygen, allowing roots to breathe and grow freely. This natural system is perfectly balanced. The mix of green materials like fresh leaves and brown materials like dry twigs provides a balanced diet for the soil life. It ensures there is enough nitrogen to fuel the decomposition of carbon-rich materials. This is the crucial difference between a forest floor and a bed of bark mulch. The forest provides a complete meal, while bark mulch is like giving your soil a diet of dry biscuits and nothing else. It's no wonder the soil struggles to thrive. The forest teaches us that soil is not just dirt, it's a living, breathing entity that needs to be fed. By observing this process, we can learn to become better gardeners. We can stop thinking of our garden waste as a problem to be disposed of and start seeing it as a valuable resource. Every leaf that falls, every stem we prune, every vegetable peel from our kitchen is a gift to our soil. It is the key to creating that same dark, crumbly, life-filled soil that we find in the woods. We don't need to buy bags of processed material. We have everything we need right here. We just need to copy nature's recipe and let the cycle of life enrich our own gardens. Creating your own living mulch is, honestly, wonderfully simple and deeply satisfying. It's less of a strict recipe and more of a continuous process of adding good things to your soil throughout the year. The primary ingredient is, of course, your own garden compost. Good, homemade compost is truly the absolute best thing you can put on your garden. It's packed with nutrients and just teeming with microbial life. I like to apply a generous layer, at least a couple of inches thick, across all my borders, in late autumn or early spring. I don't dig it in, I simply lay it on the surface and let the worms do the hard work of pulling it down into the soil. The next key ingredient is fallen leaves. In autumn, leaves are, honestly, a gift from the heavens for the gardener. Instead of burning them or putting them in the green bin, gather them up. You can create a simple pile in a corner of the garden and let them rot down into leaf mold, which is a fantastic soil conditioner. Or, you can just spread them directly onto your borders as a top layer over your compost. They'll act as a blanket, protecting the soil from winter rains and providing a slow-release feast for the worms. By spring, you'll find they've been almost entirely incorporated into the ground. Throughout the growing season, I continue to add to this living mulch. Every time I prune soft herbaceous plants, I use the chop and drop method. I simply cut the material, the stems, leaves, and faded flowers into shorter pieces and let them fall directly onto the soil surface. I do this with things like comfrey, geraniums, and nepeta. This material breaks down very quickly, returning its nutrients directly to the soil where the plant can use them again. It also helps to keep the soil surface covered and moist, reducing the need for watering and suppressing opportunistic weeds. Even kitchen scraps can play a part. Any uncooked vegetable waste, like potato peelings, carrot tops, or old lettuce leaves can be added. I tend to chop them up a bit and tuck them under the leaves of larger plants, where they'll break down, out of sight. This continuous addition of varied organic matter is what makes the mulch living. It's constantly changing, being consumed and replenished. It creates a dynamic and vibrant soil surface, a far cry from the static, sterile surface of bark chips. It's a process of feeding, not just covering. The changes in my garden since I ditched bark mulch have been, honestly, nothing short of remarkable. The most immediate and obvious difference was in the soil itself. Within a single season, the ground began to change. Where it was once pale and hard, it started to become dark and friable. Digging a hole for a new plant became a joy. The spade would slide in effortlessly, revealing earth that was moist, crumbly, and a deep, rich brown. And, most excitingly, it was absolutely writhing with earthworms. Their presence in such great numbers was the clearest sign that the soil was now a healthy, living ecosystem. This improved soil structure had a really profound effect on water retention. The soil now acts like a sponge. When it rains, the water soaks in deeply rather than running off the surface. This reservoir of moisture means I have to water the garden far less, even during dry spells. The plants are more resilient, their roots able to delve deep into the moist earth to find what they need. This has saved me an enormous amount of time and, of course, water. Weeding has also become much easier. The few weeds that do manage to germinate in the soft, loose surface are pulled out with minimal effort. Of course, the ultimate test is the health of the plants, and here the results have been spectacular. The plants are visibly stronger and more vigorous. Their foliage is a healthier, lusher green, and they produce more flowers and fruit. Because they are healthier, they are also far more resistant to pests and diseases. I find I rarely have to intervene with any kind of spray or treatment. The plants are able to look after themselves because they are getting everything they need from the living soil. The garden has found its own natural balance, a robust health that comes from within. The entire atmosphere of the garden has changed. It feels more alive, more natural. The continuous cycle of adding organic matter creates a connection between me, the plants, and the soil. It is a partnership. I am no longer imposing a sterile tidiness on the garden, but am actively participating in its life cycle. The results are not just healthier plants, but a garden that feels more authentic and is a greater pleasure to be in. It is a system that largely takes care of itself, freeing me to enjoy the simple, profound beauty of a garden in balance. Making the switch from bark mulch to a living mulch might feel like a big step, but I encourage you not to be daunted. You don't have to change your entire garden overnight. Start small, choose one bed, perhaps one that has been struggling, and make that your project for the year. Scrape away the old bark and begin the simple process of feeding the soil. Add a layer of compost, top it with some chopped leaves, and just watch what happens. Let nature show you the way. Trust in the process. The results will give you the confidence to expand this approach to the rest of your garden. Begin to see your garden waste in a new light. Every bucket of weeds, before they set seed, every handful of grass clippings, and every pruning is not a problem, but an opportunity. It is future fertility. Create a compost heap if you don't have one. It is the heart of a healthy garden. If you lack space, a simple bin will do. By recycling your garden's own resources, you are creating a closed-loop system that is not only sustainable and free, but is also perfectly tailored to your garden's specific needs. You are giving back what has been taken, completing a vital and ancient cycle. The most important shift is one of mindset. We must move away from the idea of wanting to control and tidy nature, and instead learn to work with it. A garden is not a static object to be kept pristine, like a room in a house. It is a living, breathing, ever-changing community of plants, animals, and microorganisms. Our role as gardeners is to be stewards of that community, and our most important job is to nurture the soil. Healthy soil is the foundation for everything else. When you focus on feeding the soil, you will find that so many other garden problems, pests, diseases, watering, simply melt away. So I urge you to make a promise to your soil this year. Promise to feed it, not just cover it. Promise to give it a rich and varied diet of organic matter. Promise to help it become the living, breathing heart of your garden. In return, your soil will give you a garden that is more beautiful, more resilient, and more full of life than you ever thought possible. It is the most rewarding partnership in gardening, and it begins with that first, simple act of giving back to the earth. Your plants, and the worms, will thank you for it.